We are going to do a quick points adjustment today. The points are these two areas right here. So these two pieces of metal are points, and these two pieces of metal are called points. And when the camshaft spins around, it forces these points to open and close. And every time it opens, there's a little bolt of lightning that shoots between the two, and that sends a massive charge, believe it or not, to the ignition system, which it sends it to the coils, which we've never gotten into, but then the coils send a gigantic charge to the spark plug, which is right here. Usually, if it's in there, that's where it is, and that makes sure that it sparks right when the piston gets to the very top, so that the explosion happens at the proper time and all the power is made and everything functions. If these gaps between these points are not proper, then sometimes you don't get a spark plug that fires, or it fires intermittently. So these are pretty important, and they wear out. You can imagine two pieces of metal, when they're together, is one thing, but as soon as they start pulling apart, it creates this little bolt of lightning, and once that happens a couple million times, it starts wearing out that metal. So these get replaced, they get cleaned. It's an old school way of doing things. They don't really put points on motorcycles or cars at all anymore. So we're going to learn how to properly set the gap of these points. And we are on page 40. All right, so you will need 2 screwdrivers. And you need one that's got kind of a skinny tip and one that's got a wide tip. You will need your 14 millimeter wrench, and I'm sure you know what that's for. It's for spinning the alternator. And you will need your set of feeler gauges. So pause the video and go get that stuff. All right, page 40, step 1, remove breaker point cover, figure 14. That's this, and that was there, and it is not there, so we're done with step number 1. At least on my engine, hopefully yours too. Remember, pause it after every step if you got to catch up. I'm going to keep moving. Number 2, remove the alternator cover, figure 15, right here, and turn engine over until one set of points is open to the maximum gap. All right, so we're not so concerned about lining up the LT mark with the hash mark. We're just going to turn this, and we're going to pay attention to the points up here. And we're going to keep going until one of them, let's focus on the one on the left first. We're going to watch how these points open and close. Let me get my screwdrivers off the top because the camshaft is spinning, and that would not be great. Okay, points. I'm rotating it counterclockwise. You can see the camshaft spinning. And if you take a look at this camshaft, over on this side, all you see is washer. And then when you get over here, you can see that the camshaft is poking out. That's because it's there's a sleeve over that that's got an actual lobe on it. So it's a little bit more shaped like an egg than a perfect circle. We're focused on this one. So far, it is closed. And once this fat part here gets down to that, it's going to force things open. Just starting to open. You can start to see that gap growing in there. go back a little bit, make sure that I didn't miss. I feel like that's about as wide as it's going to get. So now, with that one at its widest point, go back to the book, and it says, step number 3, measure the breaker point gap with the feeler gauge. Step number 16. Yeah, so it's just pointing to, those 2 black arrows are pointing to the gap. Point gap should be 0.012 to 0.016 inches, same as 0.3 to 0.4 millimeters. If so, go on to step 7. If adjustment is necessary, continue with steps 4 through 9. I'm pretty positive adjustment will be necessary. So let's measure this first. Let's see if we have the proper gap. All right, feeler gauge. Looking for point somewhere between 0.012 and 0.016. So I'm going to kind of have all those out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 0.012, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And I'm going to see if any of these fit in there and are touching both the top and bottom at the same time, and therefore the proper gap. .016 is too thick. Let's try 5. I can get it in there, but it's pretty tight. So that tells me that we're probably going to have a lot of luck with 0.014. No, that's still pretty tight. Let's try 0.13. Better. 0.012. Oh yeah, that fits pretty good. That's touching both, but I'm able to move it. So we're kind of in, we're in the proper gap. So we're good on that one. That's pretty surprising. So let's see what the book says here. So if that's good, step 7. Repeat steps 2 through 6 in the remaining set of points. Okay, so we go back up to step 2. And so I'm going to go through both of these first, and actually no, let's just, I'm going to assume that you need to adjust yours. So I'm going to adjust the left side, the left one. So in order to do this, we slightly loosen breaker points retaining screws A, refer to figure 17. 17 is here. As you can see from this drawing, there are 4 screws that are considered the breaker points retaining screws. Slightly loosen all 4. Use the thinner of your 2 screwdrivers for these. So we've got, and really we're only working with the left side, so maybe we just loosen the left side first. So just pop it loose a little bit. I gave it 1 full turn, or was that a half a turn? That was a half a turn. Okay. Ooh. Better go with just one with a half turn. Any more and it might come out. Give this one a half turn right there. So I've loosened these two. And now insert a screwdriver into pry slots B, then move the stationary contact so that the points gap is 0.014 as shown in 17. So it doesn't really show squat in 17, but if you look at this drawing, these two little dots right here, these are the pry slots. And you put the screwdriver between them, and then you use the edge of the screwdriver to press on this little nub right here, and that moves things back and forth. So this time you want to use your widest tip flathead, and I'll try and zoom in and show you what's going on here. So you can either put the screwdriver into this gap and then use the left little nub to move it like that, or you can put it between the two nubs and move it like that. But these nubs are specifically here just so you have like a lever, so you can create a lever to move these things around. So now we're going to take the 0.014, we're going to put it in between the points, and we're going to move this thing until we have the exact, until it's squeezing both sides of that 0.014. And while holding this in place, I'm going to try and tighten both of these screws. So this is going to take some coordination. So back to the 0.014. 0.014. All right. Screwdriver in place. I opened it. Got the 0.014 in there. When I let it go, it's pretty tight. So I want to open it back up just a smidge so that I can easily move it back and forth, and I'm positive that both points are touching. So it should be like, you should feel it. It's kind of, when you pull it out, it's dragging. It's something's kind of holding it there. Okay, so that's about it. And now to grab the other screwdriver without changing anything. Give it a half turn. Give it a half turn. Now I gotta check it again. It's too big. There's no pressure on this thing. So I'm gonna loosen just the top one a little bit and see if it grabs. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference until I do both. So I'm going to keep this one slightly loose. And now I'm going to loosen this one just a little bit, like not even a half turn. I'm going to go maybe a quarter turn. Ooh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so the first time I did it, when I went up here, when I got it to the proper gap, and then I took the feeler gauge out and I went to go get my other screwdriver, I must have been moving it a tiny bit, because after I tightened up the two locking screws here and here, this gap was too big. So when I did it the second time, I put that .014 feeler gauge in here, and the gap was too big, but I just barely loosened this one and barely loosened this one while the feeler gauge was in there. And once I felt that it was, where it needed to be, I tightened these things back up. And now I'm going to triple check that it didn't move. .014. Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Now, we need to spin the alternator bolt until the second set of points opens to their widest. So when this point here, when this bulge in this cam gets around to here, that will be open to its widest point. And then we're going to do this again. 14mm wrench. And I think I went past it again. It hasn't really changed. Interesting. Do those points even close? Yeah, now they're closing. That's closed. And the other is wide open. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to double check that again. Nice. Okay. Starting to open. Doesn't seem like it's making any difference at this point. Pretty wide. Let's give it a look. I'm going to use the 14 again. And it's kind of loose. So we got to go through this again. So loosen both the locking screws, half turn, and half turn. And now grab your larger screwdriver. And with it in between those little nubs, you can do this again. So you can see how it's moving that. I'm going to use the 14. And I need to actually close it, so I have to kind of reposition the screwdriver and try and there. That's too much. Moving it with it's slow. It's opening. It's releasing some of that pressure on it. Feels good right about there. So if I let go of the screwdriver, oh, that's not bad. It's a little tight, but not horrible. Let's see if I let go of it now. That is okay. Yeah, that's okay. Kind of getting lucky here. So I'm going to keep this in here. And give this a half turn to tighten it. Still feels good. Give this one a half turn. Still feels pretty good. Got lucky on that one. All right. Your points are adjusted. I believe that's all that really entails. According to the book, you wipe the breaker cam clean, then apply a little bit of cam lubricant. So you would put a little bit right here because it's spinning around and you want it to not heat up when it rubs against these two breaker arms. We don't have that stuff, don't worry about it. And we're good. That's all we're doing today. Have any questions, let me know.